first?
I'll go first.
Okay, awesome.
Wait, let me share my screen. Google Hangouts changed there. There we go. There. Outlets.
Oh, hey.
Okay. So I pretty much just pulled important quotes or stuff that I thought explained play well.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book it says, no matter what your age, play is important for learning, creativity, and innovation. Play makes us smarter. So play is just another strategy of presenting that adds value and keeps people entertained, basically, instead of just sleeping. By powerful. Some information about the brain. Nothing fires up the brain like play. The thing that is so unique about our species is that we really were designed to play throughout our whole lifetime. And what I liked about the text was how it was saying that there's not work and play. It's not separate things. They should be intertwined together. Mm-hmm. So in order to include play in a presentation, you have to use it to connect to your audience. So it says that you can do that by a tone of voice, a facial expression, a gesture, subtle non-verbal signals, body language, basically, to encourage playful engagement. Obviously, somber is boring. Make sure and smile. Play creates a safe environment. So one way to create a safe environment is by using humor in your presentation and natural humor. So that means anything where you relax, it's not too rehearsed, but you're being yourself, happy, interacting with the audience. You could tell a story, a joke, or point out some irony, anything to make that you think the audience would laugh at. And then play helps to take people on a journey through the presentation so they feel a part of it. You never know what you'll discover together. Discovery happens, after all, through a kind of play. Learning happens through a kind of play, and a playful spirit is open to the possibilities. This is just as true for medical doctors and scientists as it is for designers, business people, and teachers. So basically, whoever you are, using play in a presentation is going to involve people and feel like they're a part of what you're saying and take more from it than just reading a script, basically.
Awesome. That was perfectly 3 minutes, so.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much started it when you pulled it up, so.
Awesome.
But that was I love the slideshow. I did not make one of those.
Yeah, there was no time.
It's all good. That's just what's easiest for me.
Way to set standard high, Missy. Okay, no, that was great. Are there any other plays?
I am a play.
You're a play? Okay.
I am. I will attempt this screen share.
Okay.
Right, they did change this format.
It's on the left now, I think.
It is. The 3 dots.
If you hover over it, it will pull up.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. It's here. Chat. Screen share. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We're making progress, everyone.
Something's
okay,
understood. Woohoo.
Screen share. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Google Talk plugin would like to. Can everyone see that?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Is it saying me? It's telling me that it could. So, okay. Can you all see that?
Yeah,
Not anymore.
Yes, no?
I can see it.
Okay, good. So, first thing I was trying to think about is what is play. And there's this book that I really love by Brené Brown. If anyone's familiar with TED Talks, she's got one of the most popular TED Talks throughout the history of the series about vulnerability. But she wrote a book about called The Gifts of Imperfection. And she talks about in one of those books that, or in that book, that the element of play is something that's vital to just wholehearted living in general. which then prompted me to think about how I feel about play, which is usually pretty stressed out because it's not something that comes naturally to me. So I decided to go to the best source, and these are adorable Irish children, so prepare your heart.
I like playing with Lego because you don't have to read descriptions. You can make anything. I like playing with jigsaw puzzles because I like doing it. I like playing with Ben and Ruby. They're my dolls and my friends and my teddies.
So I don't know if you heard that, but their accents are adorable. But what they talked about were the main points of you can make anything is what that first little boy said, which really reminded me that if we include play in our presentations, then we are more apt to generate innovation and creativity in not only how we present, but what we present. The second point was because I like to, and which reminded me that when we're putting play into our presentations, we're naturally drawing on that passion that we have for the subject, and those two are just kind of intertwined. And then the last little girl said she liked to play with her dolls, her Teddy and her friends. And it just reminded me that we do need to engage with our audience. We need to be as thrilled to engage with them as maybe when we were kids and we were playing pretend with our pretend audience. And that's it.
Those are awesome. That was a great addition to what Missy was talking about. I kind of feel like all of the topics really intertwine. It's like hard to separate. Like, because I feel like play fits so well into passion, because I have passion. But I feel like proximity kind of probably will, like, because it doesn't obviously mean that you're like in their face, but probably more metaphorically, you know. But yeah, I feel like they're all like super intertwined. Do you want to go, Kim, or shall I? Either's fine.
I can go.
Okay, sweet.
But you're not getting any PowerPoint from me, so
Yeah, me either.
it's been a crazy week. I'm lucky to get all my homework done. So
Hey, you
yeah.
set this whole thing up, so praises.
Okay, so I had proximity, and so I started doing some research online to see what I could come up with, and this is one of the suggestions for proximity was to have clear hand gestures. And so one of the facts that I found is that the least popular TED Talks, so they put that least popular by how many views were these TED Talks had, and so though least popular averaged about 124,000. And in those TED Talks, there were only 272 hand gestures on average. Then in the most popular TED Talks, which averaged more like 7 million, there were 465 hand gestures in an 18-minute talk. So,
TED Talks are that long? Jeez.
yeah, they're most of them are about 18 minutes. So I don't know who's tracking how many hand gestures.
I don't want that job.
I want that job.
This is what I went to school for, to count hand gestures.
Yes, right. Count how many times they lift their hands or whatever.
I got my master's degree in hand gestures.
There you go.
Man, interesting.
And so then I looked up some good like hand gestures to use, because I mean, if you want to like have a popular TED Talk
Yeah.
and have 7 million views, or Brene Brown's was like 32 million. That's just crazy. So anyway, if you're using a number, and then you like show the number. So, you know, if I'm like gonna say 2 something, then okay, 2. And if you're talking something little, then, you know, you kind of make like a little hand gesture, or big, like, you know, you're going up with your arm, big growth, or that type of thing. So you're using your hands to display the words you're using, and that kind of gives people a visual of what you're trying to say. then if you're going to talk about something that's like really dear to your heart, then anywhere that you put your hands towards your heart or your chest will help emphasize that emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about two different groups, so if you're talking about like Republicans, you hold them in one hand, and Democrats you hold in the other hand, or moms and dads, or parents and children, you hold them in your hands. They kind of like
group them.
Give them a space.
Yeah.
Separates them.
Yeah.
If you're bringing the group together, then your hand, I think we can really do this. You kind of bring your hands together, and don't ever point, because that's like very aggressive and can be offensive. So it just like recommended that don't point. It probably brings you back to your mom going, "Okay, I told you."
Yeah, I told the 4-year-old I nanny to not point. I'm like, we don't point and we don't stare.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And if you open your palms or that type of thing, or it will build trust, or kind of you're talking to the group and your hands are out, then it's kind of wrapping them in a hug. So it's like creating that connection. So kind of these are all little ways to bring that proximity in. If you're on a stage and you're far away from the audience, those hand gestures kind of bring the audience into what you're saying. And there's in baseball, there's a strike zone. Well, there's a strike zone in your hand gestures, which is basically from your chest down to the bottom of your waist. So not like you need big, bold movements of your hands, really high or really low.
No flapping of the wings.
Don't fly. Okay.
I mean, maybe, have something, but like I was watching a couple TED Talks to see, okay, how are they doing this? And yeah, they pretty much kept in that strike zone. They were not going all over. And so, yeah, so I kind of found it interesting and thought, okay, you want to incorporate hand gestures. You don't want to do them all the time. Sometimes you just need to relax your arms and not always be using your hands. But I thought it was interesting because I think there was a time when it was like, don't use your hands, just give the talk. But all TED Talks, they're using hand gestures. So.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Great job.
I would not have even thought to really Google those. So now that puts a lot of thought into my head. I'm like, how can I engage my audience now next week? So that was good.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this from as soon as you said put the hands out, I was like, the Christus statue. I know it's
oh right, yeah,
right?
the open.
It makes so much sense because it's open and it's like hug. It's you made me
Hug.
so.
Yeah. I just
Good.
thought it was fascinating that hand gestures is a way that you actually connect with the audience. I hadn't ever really thought that. I think we all kind of do it subconsciously when we're talking. But the professional speakers do it purposely. They do it with a purpose. However they're using their hands, they have a purpose for it.
So interesting.
I definitely use my hands a lot as a missionary. I remember explaining things with my hands, but that's about all I could do. Just be baptized, okay? Donkey.
Were you speaking English or a different language?
Both English and Spanish, yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
Mostly
in sign
Spanish,
language, this means baptism. In
It
case
does.
you're curious, so that was one that we would learn all the time. We'd be like, so baptize.
You baptized? Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep everyone all night, so I will go over some of the notes that I wrote down from what I thought was really interesting in the reading. it kind of, well, the whole chapter starts out with